Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I am HiFi-Dawson, and this is my ultimate digital audio player buying guide. As you can see, I have all of these digital audio players on my desk here, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. How do you actually choose a digital audio player when there's this many options? And this is even just a fraction of what is available out there in the marketplace. So stick around, and I'm going to go through everything about how you should decide to choose a digital audio player in this video. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so this video is going to be structured in this way. These are all the topics that I'm going to be covering, and there's going to be timestamps to everything in the description below and on the video itself. So if you want, you can skip to the most relevant section for you, or hopefully you watch the whole video and maybe this will be helpful for you. But this video is basically for someone who has no idea how to approach buying a digital audio player, and well, basically just need some guidance on how to do that. Instead of just asking, hey, what should I buy? And someone says, well, buy this. Because I could very easily make this video here's a buying guide, here's some affiliate links, use those, just go nuts. But I don't want to do that. I want to give you guys the tools to do this. So what is a DAP? Well, a DAP, or digital audio player, or MP3 player, or music player, however you want to call it, is simply a device that plays music. Now there's two sides to this. There's DAP as a product category and DAP as a concept. As a concept, it's anything that plays music, like your smartphone or anything like that. Literally any device that plays music, tablet, retro game console, whatever you want to call it. DAP as a product category is a device that is purposely designed to play audio files. And that is what I'm going to be focusing on in this video because well, I think if you're going to buy something to play music, you want a device that is intentionally designed to do that, just to get the best experience. So why would you need a DAP in the first place? Well, it's a great way to take a break from your smartphone because you have your smartphone and maybe you do have music on here, but this has, distractions like notifications, phone calls, app updates, you name it, games. It can be very distracting to use a smartphone, right? A digital audio player is a great way to separate the music listening experience from this other side of the connected world. So there's no notifications and no temptations. These also can give you a purely offline experience if you just want to, get away from things. These also help save the battery life on your phone, not only to prevent it from draining, but also perpetually charging and discharging and everything like that. So having a separate device basically allows you to save the battery on your phone and you're using the battery on this device. These are also typically generally smaller than most smartphones. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of these you can see are more portable and smaller than your typical smartphone, and probably lighter in a way too. So that is also something to consider. So who should not be buying a DAP, or who should avoid maybe going into spending money on a digital audio player? Well, if you mainly listen to music streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music or Tidal, and you only use say Bluetooth earbuds or headphones, maybe just using your phone is enough. If you want maybe the best overall value for your audio experience, maybe just getting a dongle DAC for your phone and plugging your headphones or IEMs into it will be enough for you. And you'll actually spend less money because typically this is going to be a little bit more money than, an investment than you're going to get by just plugging in a dongle DAC to your phone. If you hate having to manage local files and you don't want to do anything with metadata or tagging or anything like that, maybe you don't want to get involved in the whole world of digital audio players because for the most part, you will need local files. So why would you get a DAP versus using your phone and a dongle DAC? Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a smartphone and getting a a dongle DAC like this. This is the iFi GoLink Max. There's nothing wrong with plugging that in, plugging your headphones or IEMs into this dongle, and playing music on your phone. Like I said before, if this is a cheaper, better route for you, maybe you shouldn't be looking into getting a digital audio player. But it does mean you are going to be using your phone more and everything like that. And if you don't have an application on your phone that gives you parametric EQ, yes, you can buy a dongle DAC that supports that. But most digital audio players, especially Android-based ones, do support things like parametric EQ. So these are the main differences. One is not better than the other. They're simply different experiences. And maybe you should consider both experiences before deciding on one. So if you've made it this far, maybe you've decided you actually do want a digital audio player, or that you do need one. So what do you actually need to get started? Well, you need a digital audio player. You also need your own music. So whether that's your own, local offline files that you have, whether they're FLAC or MP3 or whatever, or a music subscription service, because, hey, this is a judgment-free zone. If you just only listen via music streaming services, that's fine. The important thing is listening to music. And of course, you need IEMs or headphones or even speakers. Once you have all of those things, the next thing is, how do you actually pick a digital audio player? Well, I've kind of condensed this into what I see people asking most and the information they leave out when saying, hey, I need a digital audio player, suggest me something. You need to know your budget. How much are you willing to spend on this? And I don't mean just on the digital audio player itself, but you will need most likely a micro SD card. If you don't have headphones or IEMs, you will also need to factor that into the equation. So these are all things. The budget is the most important thing that you need to consider when you're going to pick a digital audio player. You also need to identify, basically, I would call this whole thing your use cases and requirements. Basically, why do I say that? Because how are you going to use it? What are you plugging into it? That is exactly how you will decide what kind of outputs you need, what kind of connectivity options you need. And which leads us into output power and noise floor. Are you going to use more demanding over-ear headphones? So you need something with a stronger, output. Are you going to use very sensitive IEMs, which means you need something with a lower noise floor? You also need to know how much storage you're going to need. So what kind of size micro SD card are you going to buy? How big is your library size? Number of tracks plus the actual size of your library, like in gigabytes. Those are two important things because some devices have track limits. And then obviously there is a storage limit with either the internal storage if it has it or the micro SD card. What kind of UI and software experience do you want? What is your actual music listening workflow? And I put an asterisk here because this is an often overlooked aspect of when people are choosing which digital audio player to get. And the reason this is important is because if you hate using the device, you will not be listening to music on that device, and you will have wasted your money and time and effort in getting that device. So understanding how you want to listen to music, how you listen to music in the sense of, do you listen to albums? Do you just listen to singles? Do you like to just browse your artists and pick something at random? Do you like to use playlists? Do you need gapless playback support so that, tracks go into each other seamlessly when they're intended to? That's what I'm talking about. Battery life. What kind of battery life are you expecting? Do you want something that works for the whole day, 12 hours or more? Or do you not really care and you're always by a power source, and if you listen to 6 hours and the battery's already at 50% or 25%, you're okay charging it? That's also an important consideration. Build quality, materials, and ergonomics. Do you want something light and portable? Do you want something that's metal, or do you want something that's durable and plastic? Do you want something with playback controls so ergonomically it fits in your hand and in your pocket? What kind of features are you looking for in your whole music listening workflow? See, a lot of these kind of tie together. It's not just one checkbox after another. So it's sort of this is how you have to imagine it. DAPs have a lot of features, USB DAC modes, Bluetooth DAC. Some of them you can do, Wi-Fi music transfers. There's a few that have a battery bypass feature where you can use it as as a desktop device, so you're not draining the battery while it's plugged in. Do you need file browser support? Do you not use like music apps, but you just want to use like the file browser? Playlist support, again, is a pretty big one, like M3U and M3U8 playlists. Is that an important thing to you? And of course, like I mentioned, gapless playback, like if you like listening to, say, albums from, say, Pink Floyd, like Dark Side of the Moon, where all the tracks seamlessly go in together to make one essentially long track. Gapless playback basically means if it supports it, it will play it back as intended. If it doesn't support gapless playback, there will be like a quarter to half second gap of silence between the tracks, which makes, albums like Dark Side of the Moon totally unlistenable. And this leads us into operating systems. So these are the different DAP operating systems available. So I'm going to cover most of these. Well, pretty much all of these except for Sony's custom OS, because I don't have any Sony MP3 players anymore. But the non-Android operating systems, which are the HiBy OS, Shanling's MTouch OS, RTOS, which is on the SnowSky Echo series, whatever the SnowSky disk is using, and then of course iPod, Zune, and then this thing called Rockbox. As you can see, these OSs, they do have different limitations. And I'm going to go through each OS and the limitations each has. So first up, HiBy OS. I'm going to use the HiBy R1 here to show you HiBy OS. Oh, it was already on. So this is the operating system for HiBy OS. So HiBy OS is a fairly minimalistic and straightforward operating system. It gives you basic music playback capabilities, so you can have artists, you can go in, you can play a song, that kind of stuff. It shows you album art. It's all touchscreen navigation, although there are playback controls on here. And of course, the different HiBys like this. Oh, this is the HiBy R3 Pro 2. Has a little bit different buttons on it too. So as you can see, looks a little bit different. But in general, the operating system will work the exact same way. All the same features, roughly speaking, are there. This does support gapless playback, and this does have playlist support. Now, playlist support on non-Android devices are pretty basic, so you can create playlists on here, you can import M3U files, you can rename the playlists, but you can't group them together or do anything like that, and it's just straightforward, basically. This has nice features on it. It's like, so you can do there's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on here. You can do Wi-Fi music transfer. There's AirPlay support. This supports streaming Tidal and Qobuz. So if you have a Tidal or Qobuz account, you can stream, no offline playback, but just stream music using those accounts. It's a little bit, not the greatest experience. I wouldn't use this device just for that. But in terms of just offline music playback, HiBy OS is good. It supports up to 2 terabytes of micro SD cards, generally speaking. It does have a 50,000 track limit, so in this music player, it will only index 50,000 tracks. If you have more, you have to go into the file browser and use the file browser for more than 50,000. There's a beta firmware out for the HiBy R1 that increases this to 100,000. People have also made modded firmware for that, but seems they will be increasing this to 100,000, which is nice to see. If you have 100,000 tracks, good for you, because I only have about 11,000, and I've been collecting music for about 15, 20 years now. What else is there on here? Well, another important aspect is how you tag your music, right? So I won't go too deep in that at this moment because I have a section later on about that, but if you tag your music by album artist and you really like to use album artist, the unfortunate thing with HiBy OS is it displays under album artist all the tracks. It does not group it by album, whereas as you see under artists, they are grouped by album. So this is an important distinction for if depending on your music listening workflow. But overall, that is HiBy OS. Now we're going to look at Shanling's MTouch OS. I think I turned that off, so we're just going to turn this on. And Shanling's MTouch OS is, I would say, pretty feature-rich. It's maybe a step up from HiBy OS. It's very refined. I find there's less bugs on it, but overall, it's very nice. They all have like a pull-down thing. You can do, it's all touchscreen navigation. There is playback controls. This one has a volume knob on it, so that's kind of cool. What I really like about Shandling's MTouch OS is they give you the ability to sort by artist or album artist right here. You don't need to rescan anything. It's all right in one single UI. So it's pretty nice. I do like that they show the album art on albums. I do wish, and this is a problem also on HiBy OS, none of these non-Android operating systems are able to display albums by year. They all do it alphabetically. So if that is an important thing for you, probably want to look at a different operating system. But overall, this is a pretty nice operating system. It has playlist support. It has the same type of playlist support as on HiBy OS. You can do folder browsing. And this has a 20,000 track limit using the music library browser and an unlimited track limit using the folder browser, which is typically the case for most of these operating systems. So, and this also, MTouch OS also supports title streaming, not offline playback, but just title streaming. And of course, there's album art here, and there's lyric support using LRC files, same as on HiBy OS. So this is generally what MTouch OS looks like. So we're going to talk about the SnowSky Echo series here. So I'm going to power this on. This is the Echo Nano. Come on, there we go. The Echo Nano, Echo Mini, and Echo all use the same operating system, but obviously on the Echo Nano, it looks a little bit different just because smaller screen. On the Echo Nano, the navigation there's no touch screens on these, so it's all done by this volume wheel on the Echo Nano, which is nice. But one annoying thing is, so if you want to go and browse, if you're a person who likes to browse by songs and you go in all songs, depending on how many you have, you're going to be scrolling a lot using a volume wheel. Another limitation here is, so everything, shows artists good, but if you go into an album, it shows you the file name, not the track name. So on the Echo series, you have to have your file names logically named, otherwise you won't be able to find them very well. So this is the order I recommend do it, and you can use programs to do this. I won't go too much into this because I do have a full review on the Echo Nano, but anyways, just something to be aware of. And then there is a now playing screen, obviously no album art, but yeah. I'm just going to power this guy off. I'm going to take out the micro SD card. And we're going to plop it into this Echo Mini. And power it on. So obviously this does not have a volume wheel. It uses these buttons for the navigation. So like I said, none of these have touch screens. And this is what the main screen looks like. And you have to navigate using these buttons. So again, it's very annoying because again, look at this. We go here and we have to go all the way down. So depending on how many songs you have to hold it or just do that. And yeah, this is slow, kind of annoying. If you have a lot of tracks and you like to browse by tracks, this is very frustrating. But even by artist, it's not like it's, that easy either. So yeah, this is just how the navigation is. If you don't like this, seriously, don't get it because it will annoy the hell out of you. So know what you're getting. And I'm just going to zoom out here and let's talk about Android now. So Android comes in a lot of different flavors, and obviously different Android DAPs have different Android flavors. And by flavors, I mean versions. But I'm just going to show you a few here. So power it or turn the screen on all of these. Okay. So the Surfans F20 Pro here uses Android 12. Same with the HiBy R4. The Sony A306 uses Android 14 because I had an upgrade from Android 13. The Shandling M3 Plus Master and the M3 Plus over here use Android 13. And the iBasso DX180 also uses Android 13. The Sony WM1 AM2 uses Android 11. there is not a huge difference between all of these Android versions, other than just say the look of the, the quick menu bar, whatever you want to call it, that kind of thing. Again, not really like a huge difference. Functionally, they're going to be the same, that kind of stuff. But one thing to pay attention to is, for example, HiBy for the R4, they do things like you can have different icons, different themes, that kind of thing. And yes, like generally you can do that with any Android DAP, right? But this is kind of a built-in thing. Now they also have their own built-in players, like Sony has their Walkman music player, HiBy has HiBy music player, Shanling has their Shanling audio one, iBosso has the Mango player, that kind of thing. They pretty good, they do a good job. Personally, I'm a big fan of Sony's Walkman because it just has all the options on here. It looks really nice, it's really easy to use, and it's really music focused. Otherwise, I usually use USB Audio Player Pro because that's my preferred go-to. Even on a small screen here, it's pretty usable because the reason I'm showing you the F20 Pro is it has a very small screen and is considered to be an underpowered Android digital audio player. But it does work just fine, despite this crappy launcher that they chose to use. As you can see, all these devices, they're reasonably snappy. One thing to note too is not all Android devices are created equal, in the sense that Android has this thing called global SRC, which is sample rate conversion. Basically what that means is Android is resampling the sampling rate to 48 kilohertz. Most of these Android devices bypass this, so that any music player you install can use bit perfect playback. So the keyword here, or the key phrase here, is bit perfect playback, no resampling. If you are a purist, or if that is of value to you, bit perfect playback is important. The Sony Android DAPs, including the 707 there, Sony decided not to bypass Android's SRC, so only the built-in music player can use bit perfect playback. Everything else you install on there has to use the resampled 48 kilohertz while resampling. There's also a high-res music streaming option that Sony built in that will upsample to 192 kilohertz. So know those things going into this. So we're just going to put these back, and we're going to talk about two other things. One, this is an iPod Classic 7th Gen, modded. Has the flash storage and a new battery, bigger battery in it. And I wanted to bring this out because a lot of people are very nostalgic about the iPod OS and everything. I think it's just okay. I think that people are maybe a little bit too, they let the nostalgia cloud their how this thing actually works, and it works just okay. It lacks a lot of features such as volume buttons and stuff like that, so you have to change the volume while you're in the now playing screen. It has the cover flow option, which is kind of cool. Maybe it's just cool to look at, but not to practically use, in my opinion. But again, everyone has their own preferences. It is sometimes a little bit slow. And obviously you need something like iTunes or, one of the third-party applications to put music on, take music off, that kind of thing. Battery life is incredible. That's maybe the biggest positive about the iPod, but otherwise there's like a significant amount of background hiss on the output, so using sensitive IEMs is not going to happen on here. And here is also the Zune. So this is the Zune 120 gigabyte. This is unfortunately not my original Zune, which died back in like 2008 or 2009. But this is one I bought off eBay, and it does not have flash storage. It has a hard drive based mechanical hard drive, and it has a nice operating system. I like the scroll button on here much more than the click wheel on the iPods. It's overall pretty nice. But again, you are paying a premium for this and for the iPod if you're going to buy them off eBay. So keep that in mind. You're better off probably buying something that is new and, well, I would say, supported by the manufacturer currently. And lastly, we're going to show you one thing here. So this is the Surfans F20. Basically the same thing as the HiFi Walker H2. This thing supports Rockbox. So I'm just going to boot into the stock operating system. And to do that, you hold the play pause button while holding the power button. I'm just going to quickly show you the stock operating system, which is very bare bones, and it has a very low battery right now, which kind of sucks. But anyways, so this is the stock operating system. No playlist support, and if you go into artists, there's no albums there to play. It just does all the songs. So it's very limited in this way. But you can install the third-party firmware called Rockbox. And we're just going to boot this up here. There's Rockbox. And hey, look, it's Rockbox. And looks kind of similar to the iPod. And if we go into, not files, database, and we can go to album artist, and we can go into, albums here, and tracks, and play a track, and hey, look at that. Pretty cool. And it has themes. This is like an Apple Music inspired theme, which I think is pretty cool. Anyways, this is probably like the biggest reason you'd get like the Surfans F20 or the HiFi Walker H2 is for Rockbox support, which is pretty, it's pretty cool thing if you like that customizability and theme support. I'm just gonna power it off because low battery. Basically, all these operating systems and all these digital audio players, they have their own strengths and they have their own weaknesses. And I try to list these all in my reviews when I do reviews on these and on my digital audio player guide on my website, my DAP database that I have. I usually try and show those limitations. One last thing I will just summarize with is on the HiBy OS and Shanling MTouch OS, supports playlists, supports gapless playback. On the Echo series, no playlist support, no gapless playback support. Gapless playback won't be happening. The hardware doesn't support it. That includes on the HiTiz AP30 Music Boy here, which runs the same hardware as the Echo series. There will not be gapless playback support. The SnowSky disc, I won't really show you the operating system here because it's the only device that has it. I have a full review on this thing anyways, but currently has gapless support, although some people say it's not working correctly, and playlist support does look to actually be coming. Anyways, these are the operating systems of these digital audio players. Next up, are more expensive digital audio players better? Yes and no. It's not a clear-cut answer, but I'm going to say for most people, they don't need to worry about more expensive digital audio players. How I would phrase this, or how I'm going to frame this whole thing. So if you have a budget digital audio player and you're going to, say, a mid-range digital audio player, it's like going from like 480p resolution, standard definition resolution, to like HD resolution, like 720p or 1080p. For people who were around when that happened, the transition from SD to HD, that was kind of a big thing. It was a big deal. It was like a wow moment. Everyone could really see it, and it got a lot of people out to buy HD TVs. There was a tangible difference in what you were seeing. And when you're going from a budget digital audio player to a mid-range one, I think that the whole overall experience and sound quality does equal that kind of jump. Going from a mid-range player to a very high-end digital audio player is like going from 1080p to 4K HDR. It's not as clear-cut of a difference, and it's more about nuance and refinement. So that is where most of the expensive part of expensive digital audio players goes into. It goes into, how the company has designed the audio circuitry, the type of materials they've used, the R&D they've put into developing those technologies. A lot of it has to do mostly with the internal design and maybe some of the cost with the external design too. For example, the iBosso DAPs, they have a back that comes off and you can replace the battery. And that probably did cost some R&D to develop that kind of thing, and that's what you're paying a little bit more for. But do not expect a drastic difference going from mid-range to high-end. Again, it's more about nuance and refinement. Even going from some budget DAPs to mid-range DAPs, it's not like you're going to get this massive sound quality difference. And generally speaking, I do not suggest that someone buys a new DAP just to improve the sound quality unless you're trying to fix something, whether it's background hiss or distortion. You will not get dramatic changes in sound. That is what buying new headphones or IEMs is for. Common mistakes to avoid when buying a digital audio player. Well, buying based only on the DAC chip. And yes, like this is where the whole marketing comes in, and people are obsessed about this brand of DAC chip has a different sound than this brand. They all accomplish the same thing. A DAC is a digital to analog converter. They're just converting digital to analog. If something sounds dramatically different, they're doing something wrong. Where the tuning changes is in the device itself, the internal materials that the company uses. They can do software changes for the overall sound as well, but generally speaking, there is stuff around the DAC chip that a company is changing to give a DAP a particular sound. So don't buy a DAP based on the DAC chip. Assuming balanced always sounds better. It doesn't. So if you are really obsessed about like, oh my God, this has a balanced and a 3.5 millimeter single-ended, I'm gonna use the balanced because I heard it sounds better. Having a balanced output doesn't make anything sound better. It just gives you more output power, therefore it sounds louder. And a lot of people mistaken louder for better. What this will probably actually do is if you're using sensitive IEMs, it's going to raise the noise floor, and you're going to have a little bit more background noise and background hiss and interference. So balanced outputs don't make things sound better. It's like saying changing your cables will make it sound better. It doesn't work this way. These outputs exist for power output requirements. So generally speaking, you should only be using the 3.5 millimeter. If you need more output power, use the balanced output. Buying a tiny DAP when you want to drive demanding headphones. I would not suggest to get a Shanling M0 Pura and pair this with, high-end planar magnetic hi-fi man headphones. It's not going to drive it very well. You may get the volume, but you're probably not going to get the whole sound experience that that headphone is capable of. That's why looking at power output requirements is essential. And there is no one-size-fits-all to all this. And there are power output calculators like on headphones.com that can help you determine the general, what you need, but they're not exact. I wish they made it a little bit clearer. I wish it was like a very clean way to actually calculate all this, but you just get ballpark numbers, and you also have to rely on people's reviews saying, yes, it does sound good. So you have to put all that together and decide for yourself. Ignoring limitations. So I talked about like M3U playlist support, gapless support, track limits, that kind of thing, storage, because like, for example, the SnowSky Echo series only supports micro SD cards up to 256 gigabytes. Don't ignore these limitations and think like it won't apply to you. Forgetting the cost of the micro SD card. So yes, you bought a DAP, but now you need a micro SD card. Don't forget to include that cost in your whole budget when you're trying to figure out how much you're going to spend. Don't buy too expensive too early, and don't buy too cheap too early. You don't need to go right for the Sony WM1 AM2 because I wrote a review 3 years ago that said this is an amazing digital audio player. It is an amazing digital audio player, but it doesn't mean you need to spend $1,500 to buy this digital audio player. Especially if your requirements are only, say, maybe the AP80 Pro Max actually fits your requirements because you just need a small, basic, straightforward digital audio player. So don't get sucked into the hype and marketing of going too expensive. Also, don't go too cheap and get the most budget device and then be unhappy with the experience and the limitations that are inherent with cheap devices. I'm going to show you my own personal DAP buying framework here. So this is my own personal, how I actually buy a digital audio player. I identify my use case and requirements. Do I need local files, or am I going to use streaming on it? Do I want it pocketable or just transportable? Because I'm going to be using it mostly at home on my desk. What am I going to be listening to it with? IEMs or full-size headphones? Do I need a simple operating system, or do I need Android because I want to listen to music streaming services, or I want to download USB Audio Player Pro on it? What is my budget? Basically, I say budget first, DAC chip last, because you should not be putting all of these extra things, as your requirements, and then at the end deciding your budget. Budget is what will drive your decision as to what you can afford to get. So budget should always be like first. I'm also going to talk very quickly about syncing music and metadata. And what do I mean by this? So how do you actually get music onto the digital audio player? Well, this is done through micro SD cards. And, there's like different sizes of cards, different format types. Generally speaking, exFAT will work on almost all digital audio players. FAT32 is still the most compatible, but I would go with exFAT unless a manufacturer explicitly states otherwise. And I would format it, you can format it on your computer using a program. You can format it on some of the DAPs themselves. On Android DAPs, I generally format it on the Android DAP. And when copying music to and from the micro SD card, I generally like to use an adapter for that. So this is just a nice USB 3.0 adapter with a micro SD card and a full SD card slot on there. And yeah, I like to use this and USB 3 because it actually, a lot of the cards are pretty fast. So this is a much quicker way to copy music to and from. Because if you're going to plug a digital audio player into a computer, it's going to run at USB 2.0 speeds, and it's going to go through the USB section of the digital audio player. It's going to be a much slower experience, especially on Android, which uses the MTP driver, or protocol. So I would suggest if your laptop doesn't have a micro SD card slot, get an adapter. It'll be a much faster experience. You can use programs for syncing music. So on Windows, there's just File Explorer if you want to use that, or MusicBee is a really good library music management and player that you can also sync to storage devices. On Mac OS, there is an open MTP client for Android that does work actually really well. I have used it a lot. Personally, what I end up doing is on Android digital audio players, I have installed Solid Explorer. It has an FTP client, and I just use WinSCP on my Windows computer to copy via FTP to the Android device. And I'm sure there are many FTP clients available for Mac OS and Linux. For tagging music, I like to use MP3 tag. For going through all of my music, I did use MusicBrainz Picard for tagging it, but I did find it added so much extra information to my library that I in the end wasn't really happy with that. It's a good way to do a sanity check for a lot of track names and stuff, and it can be a little bit complicated to do. Once that initial wave of getting it all set up is over, MP3 tag is a very, very good application for editing metadata, adding album art, that kind of thing, even adding lyrics. M3U playlists. So most digital audio players do support M3U playlists or M3U8 playlists. They're just the two different standards. And you can use MusicBee, or you can even use these various MP3 dropper applications to create playlists that you can import onto your digital audio player. I'm not going to go through all of this in detail. These are just some things to be aware of. If you have any questions about any of these things, you can of course leave a comment below and I'll try and answer that. But again, I just wanted to quickly touch those types of things. The last thing I'm going to do is just talk about the different DAPs and different price points. So I'm not going to go through everything here, but what's on my desk, the Echo Nat. I'm just going to quickly go through what's on my desk basically, so you know what is actually all these things. So, and I'm putting the prices up there so you can see the prices of what I'm calling out down here. So this is the Echo Nano, this is the Echo Mini, this is the HiBy R1, this is the Tempotech Variations V1, this is the OilSky M308, Shanling M0S, SnowSky Disc, the HiDis AP30 Music Boy, Shanling M0 Pro and M0 Pura, Surfans F20. This is a Surfans F20 Pro. This is the Surfans F28. This is the FiiO JM21. And I'll have to move the slide over, I guess, because I already hit those there. Yes. So the FiiO JM21. This is the HiDis AP80 Pro Max. This is the Shanling M1 Plus, HiBy R3 Pro 2, HiBy R4, Sony NWA306. I guess I put them in different positions. This is the FiiO M21. I did include it in this under 350 section because generally the M21 can be found on sale for under 350. This is the Onyx Takata XM2 channeling M3 Plus, and this is the M3 Plus Master, which replaced the M3 Plus. This is the Ibosso DX180. This is the Sony ZX707, and this is of course the Sony WM1 AM2. Now, something interesting here, the the Zune 120 gigabyte, and even though this is an iPod 256 gigabyte, but the 120 gigabyte, both of these retailed for I think $249 USD when they came out in 2008, 2009. By nowadays, with adjusted for inflation, it's about $350 to $380. So that would put it in range of like the FiiO M21 and Dakota XM2. Lastly, I definitely did not want to just be like, this is what I think you should buy, here's some affiliate links, please use those and just go nuts. Like I said before, I really just want to give you the information to, well, be able to figure out how you want to approach getting a digital audio player. Part of that is tools, and I do have a tool on my website. So if you go to HiFi-Oasis.com, and if you go to this here, the best digital audio players, it's HiFi-Oasis.com/DAPs. And we go down, I do have some information here and some links to, my Reddit profile and to my YouTube channel, which I do video reviews, of course, as well as some pictures on different sizes and thicknesses of the digital audio players. Most importantly, I have this, digital audio player filterable guide on, how to pick stuff. So all the majority of filters are here that you should need. There shouldn't be anything else. If something is missing, let me know. But I also have a HiFi-Dawson quick pick section where these are all of the digital audio players that I think a person should look at those respective price points. And I think that if you are totally clueless where to start, this is maybe a good place to start. And I also have some features on here where you can compare, several different digital audio players. You can share the comparison, you can share the current view. So I put a lot of work into doing this kind of filtered guide so that it is as easy as possible to see the differences between things and kind of what you would want. If you do decide to purchase one of those digital audio players and my guide was helpful, I do have purchase links here, and not all are affiliate links, but where possible, I do try to use affiliate links. This is where I do ask, if it was helpful, I would appreciate if you use the affiliate link. It does help me keep the website running because it does cost some money. And it also would help to, enable me to buy more digital audio players to, basically to review for you guys. Because believe it or not, most of the digital audio players on this desk I bought myself. There was only maybe a handful that actually companies did provide to me for review. I do try to go out of my way and buy things on my own so that it does kind of remove that layer of bias, I suppose, but I still try to be very critical even if it was, provided to me by a company, as you can see in my many reviews. But generally speaking, affiliate links are the only way that I actually make money from any of this. So if any of this has been helpful, I do appreciate if you do use those links. So overall, I think that is my overall guide on digital audio players and how to buy them. So I guess it's kind of a 2-in-1. This is just giving you a landscape of what digital audio players are, the features and what is available, and then also how to actually approach buying one. If this was a helpful video, let me know. Let me know down below in the comments. And also, click like. I also appreciate that. And subscribe to my channel so you can view more content of mine. And if it wasn't helpful, let me know what I could have improved, and maybe also let me know how you go about purchasing digital audio players. Well, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.